You went on, though, to win 11 primaries, caucuses in 2012. I mean, Iowa, Colorado, Minnesota, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, when you look at it, an impressive list. Now when you get ready to talk about this again, is it going to be different?
Oh, it's always different. First off, the field is different, the climate is different, and I'm different. I mean, I'm a different candidate than I was back in 2011. The fact that someone who's in this previous race he lost would then turn around and run for president was, to most people, an absurdity. And we were dismissed by everybody. I mean, I remember you guys did your roundup in 2011 of all the potential Republican candidates, and I think it was 15 of them or something like that, and I wasn't even on the list.
But what about this thought that you recently said, do you think wealthy people care whether their president cares about them? No, and you were referencing the exit poll question about who cared more about voters.
Right, and
who identified with them.
Right, the question here is, if there's the second most important issue to people on Election Day 2012 was, does the person who's running care about people like me? And my point was that if you look at the crosstabs of who those people are, they're not wealthy people, because wealthy people don't really care much whether the president really cares about them or not. They're not worried about whether the president cares about them. Who are worried are people who are hurting, and whether the president has a heart for them and sees their pain and is going to do something to try to help alleviate
So
that.
if you were a governor, would you have taken Medicaid?
I would not have taken Medicaid, and because I think the long-term problems there are serious, and from a budgetary standpoint. And I don't believe that the answer to these problems is more government programs. The answer to the problems, and again, I go back to sort of the basic understanding of how we care for the poor. You care for the poor best the closer you are to those who are poor. And the idea of families first, strengthening families, is the greatest thing we can do to help lower and middle income Americans rise in society.
I want it noted that we've talked a lot here, more than 20 minutes, and this is the first social issue question I'm asking. For the record.
But my guess is it'll lead the story.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Would a President Rick Santorum work to overturn Roe v. Wade?
Sure.
Would?
Oh, of course. No, look, when we need to go out and make the case, as I have, that this is a damaging thing for our society. We're losing 1 million people a year to abortion. And we need to raise the bar as to what kind of country we are. Look, we can't overturn legislatively Roe versus Wade because the public isn't there yet. But that will be my burden, is to move the public in that direction. I believe that the law should reflect the collective morality of the people of this country. That's what I believe. And right now, that's not where the country is, but that's what I will hope to try to move.
Would you say, if you decide to go, that this would be a more optimistic tone from you than last time?
I'd say realistic tone. I think going around saying happy days are here again, everything's going to be great, I think Americans know that happy talk from politicians is just that, happy talk. I try to be realistic about where we are as America and try to take us where we are and move us upward. So the answer is yes, optimism, but based on the idea of, here, look, we have some serious problems that we have to confront, and we have to look specifically at how we can address those to create a better America.
How do Republicans counter a potential Hillary Clinton nomination?
I would make the argument that, number one, national security is going to be a very, very important issue in this election. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. That gives her certainly tremendous credentials on that subject area, but also vulnerability because she was Secretary of State under the president who created this disaster around the world by his policies.
I've heard these little sentences and things that you say about the inexperience of some and bringing in, experts to train for a debate like Governor Perry has done. As you look at the potential field, who else out there do you think is impressive, formidable?
I've made a solemn vow not to go in and analyze all the other candidates and their strengths and
weaknesses. You did
weaknesses.
it for us for years.
I did, but it's not my role anymore. What I can say is we have a very strong and impressive group of people running. I mean that in all sincerity. I think we really do. We have a stronger bench, clearly, than the other side of the aisle.
If you run as expected, is it fair to say that Iowa is the be-all, end-all for Rick Santorum?
Iowa's important. I mean, clearly, if we don't do well in Iowa, there's not much of a path for us. That's why, as we're going through this process of determining whether to take another run at this, we're spending some time here in Iowa because we have to determine whether the support that we had last time is still there.
You obviously talk about your faith, and you've just written this book about your daughter, Bella's Gift, and it's an interesting read, a great read. Is how much does that drive you, and how does that factor in?
I haven't told this story much anyway, maybe at all. One of the reasons I got into the race in 2012 was because of Bella. Obamacare was a very scary thing to us. We had just gone through in 2008 a whole series of hospitalizations. And Bella was on a ventilator for 5 weeks, died twice. Her heart stopped, she stopped breathing, and she was revived twice. And we went through horrible times in hospitals. And we found some disturbing things when we went through that process.